Vote.
They should be on. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy requirements of the Planning Act and Council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters of the subject properties. In addition, a public sign has been posted on the lands. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Should an application be approved, voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and mailing address for the record. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. All interested parties are invited to be present. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. There are colored forms for this purpose, which are available on the back table. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the local appeal body within 20 days of the decision. Minor variances, and within 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent applications. I'd like to introduce our hearing panel for today. My far left is Brian D. Martell. On my left is John Clausen. I'm the chair, Wayne Lockey. Our clerk is Nancy Bazzato on my far right, and her assistant, Holly Wilford. Does any member of the panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
I have none, Mr. Chair.
And I have none. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
None that we're aware of, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with the application for consent, which is the last one on the agenda for today. But this application has to be heard before the application for minor variance. So I'd like to start with B4 218 for 222-7531 Ontario Incorporated. If there's anybody here representing that, would you come up to the table, please? And could you state your name? And
my name is Osama Abu Nassar. I'm an architect representing the Ontario Number Company, owner of this property.
thank you very much. Have a seat. And would you read any summary presentation, please, Holly?
Thank you. Application for consent, file B4/2018P numbered company 222-7531, Ontario Inc. Excerpts from planning report. The subject land is located on the east side of Pelham Street, lying south of John Street, known locally as 1295 Pelham Street in the town of Pelham. Application is made for consent to convey 749.9 meters square of land, Part 1, to create a new lot for single detached residential development. 1,479.8 meters square of land, Part 2, is to be retained for continued use of a single detached dwelling. Minor variance application A11/2018P is being considered concurrently to address the deficient lot frontage requirements in the zoning bylaw. To date, the following comments have been received. Bell Canada, no comments. Building Department, no comments. Public Works. Based on the 2011 development agreement for Stella Street, the referenced drawing indicates that services for 1295 Pelham Street branch through 52 Stella Street and into an easement at the rear along the south property line. These services will need to be located and confirmed to branch through 52 Stella Street. An alternative option of severance will need to be considered, or an easement over the new proposed parcel, Part 1, shall be proposed. To date, the following comments have been received from the public. Multiple residents submitted a group letter advising they were concerned that the proposed lot is being undersized, the new dwelling will loom over the other houses, there are issues with 3.6 meter setbacks between existing and proposed dwellings, there will be issues with the proposed front yard setback, the proposed dwelling will destroy their view of trees on the subject land, the drainage on 52 and 54 Stella Street will be affected, and there will be adverse impacts on surrounding property values. Planning staff is of the opinion that the proposal applies current planning and development goals dealing with appropriate infill development, making more efficient use of the planning urban lands where suitable to do so. The proposed severance should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regards to land use compatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans. The following conditions are suggested: that the applicant submit a comprehensive overall lot grading and drainage plan for all parcels demonstrating that the drainage neither relies upon nor negatively impacts neighboring properties, and that all drainage will be continued within the respective boundaries of the new parcel to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Utilities. Ensure the subject land, Part 1, be serviced at Pelham Street with an individual 20 millimeter water service and 125 millimeter sanitary sewer lateral in accordance with the Town of Pelham standards. Installation of any services will require authorization obtained and approved by the Public Works Department through a temporary works permit. The applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. Ensure that the remnant land, Part 2, continue to be adequately serviced to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department. Submit locate cards after the installation of the services for Part 1. Obtain consent approval for an easement in perpetuity for the existing sanitary sewer lateral over Part 1 in favor of Part 2 if necessary. Obtain approval for a driveway entrance and culvert permit issued through the Public Works Department to town standards. The applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. Conduct an archaeological assessment and receive clearance from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. Obtain final approval of the necessary minor variance application from the Town of Pelham Committee of Adjustment to the satisfaction of the Secretary-Treasurer. Sign the Town of Pelham Standard Memorandum of Understanding explaining that development charges and cash in lieu of the dedication of land for park purposes are required prior to the issuance of a building permit. Provide the Secretary-Treasurer with the registrable legal description of the subject property together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use of the issuance of the certificate of consent. Provide the final certification fee of $380 payable to the Treasurer, Town of Pelham, be submitted to the Secretary-Treasurer. All costs associated with fulfilling conditions of the consent shall be borne by the applicant.
Thank you, Holly. Do you have any comments or anything to add?
Thank you very much, Chairman. And actually, we have no comments. The city staff did a very good job in research about it, and the severance is minor in nature, and this is within consistent of the growth of the Horseshoe and Ontario growth plan. And the new lot created is over 50 feet wide, which is very good size to build a decent size house with 2-car garages. And the owners themselves, they will keep those lots for themselves, and they will build for themselves as well.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who would care to have any comments? If so, please come to the mic in the center and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mark Bull. I live at 52 Stella. I was the one that wrote the letter. on behalf of our neighbors. My house is directly behind the house in question. We obviously have a number of concerns about this being built. You know, we're talking about a very small lot surrounded by very large lots, which would be out of place. Our house 52 Stella and the house south of us 54 Stella, we have drainage running right between our two properties right now, which is right in the middle of where this proposed lot would be. So we have definite concerns about what would happen to our drainage if a home were to be built there. I mean, I sort of outlined everything in my letter. We're certainly not happy. I understand development, but there's lots of other undeveloped land that makes sense, in our opinion, for 50-foot lots. You know, our area is, you know, 75 lots or 75-foot wide lots or greater than that.
Thank you. Has anybody else got anything to add? Any other concerns?
I guess the other thing is that there are a lot of very large mature trees that would have to be taken down, which is a big concern.
Mm-hmm. We've inspected the property and see those trees. Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much for your concerns. Everybody has the right to have these concerns and to be worried about his property as well as a neighbor.
Sorry, sir, I can't hear you over here.
I'm saying everybody has the right to be worried about his property as a neighbor, and we support neighbors as well. We like to make sure that this new lot will be served in a very good way, the neighbors as well, not to be undermine their properties. It will be designed in very nice and beautiful way to enhance, actually, increase the value of their properties. Second, his concern about the drainage, as maybe you've seen in the comments from the public work, that they will request a drainage or grading plan, which it will be provided prior to any house will be built there, to make sure that everything is taken care of properly. So to make sure that all the water is drained in proper way and not affecting the neighbors' properties.
Thank you. Do any of the committee have any questions or comments?
I have only one comment. I did visit the site, and at first I thought, gee, it seems slightly smaller than the others. But I do recall many years ago the current concerns on Stella Street behind those existing homes on South Pelham, and I place faith in our various departments at the town of Pelham to make sure that with all the conditions that we will have to place forth, that they will be met, particularly the drainage problems that could possibly occur. So I would just say that dealing with the policies, the infill policies, the costs of infrastructure and improvement of infrastructure in the existing town, that I see this as a valuable piece of property that should be developed, and I do not personally see values in the area going down. I don't know how my peer feels about that.
John?
What I want to ask you, right now, I know the area. The house that's there now was Lou Macy's place years ago, and Mrs. Kunda lived next door. Okay, so this, going way back, Mrs. Kunda developed the whole property, made the lots. Now you're coming in, taking access, maybe people don't want a garden or whatever, and creating a new lot and changing the whole atmosphere of the neighborhood. by putting a house right in that area. I can understand where the people are coming from. But why wouldn't you do the drainage and all that, do that work first and show what these people, that they shouldn't have concerns. I got an engineer here this is what we can do and how we can do it, and this is what it's going to look like. Because the way you're going now, they have no idea what it's going to look like, no idea what's going to go on, and their properties are going to be affected because you got land up here and you got land down here. So you know that whatever you're going to do, it's going to require quite a bit of work. And maybe then you'd alleviate all the problems. Do a little more work before you come to us for the consent. That's all I have to say.
I can understand some of the concerns, but with Ontario policy right now for infilling, I don't think we have any choice except to, well, see what the committee votes, but we have Ontario policy, we have town policy. These lots are going to be infilled and smaller. Are you ready for a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair, that the application for consent be granted, subject to the following conditions. And I have quite a few here. One, that a comprehensive overall lot grading and drainage plan for the parcels. Number two, the surfacing from Pelham Street with an individual 20 millimeter water service and 125 millimeter sanitary sewer lateral in accordance to the town of Pelham standards. Number three, ensure that the remnant land, that would be part two, continues to be adequately serviced after the development of part one. Number four would be to submit the locate cards after the installation for the services for the part one. Five, obtain consent for the easement for the sanitary lateral sewer over part one if necessary. Number six, obtain driveway entrance and culvert permit. Number seven, an archaeological assessment of that area. Number eight, we still have to deal with the minor variance, approval of that, which we'll be looking at. Number nine, sign the town of Pelham Standard Memorandum of Understanding. That's very, very important. And then, of course, provide the Secretary Treasurer with the legal description, reference and plan and certification fees. So there are quite a few conditions there. There are 10. And this decision is based on the following reasons. That as far as I am concerned, that it conforms to the policies of the Pelham's official plan, the regional policy plan, the provincial policy statement, and it complies with the town of Pelham's bylaw, zoning bylaw, and it has regard for other provisions of the Planning Act. And three, that we have considered all the written and oral submissions. We've made visits, we get this information, and we prepared it ahead of time along with today's meeting. And we feel that I feel that the application meets the Planning Act criteria and is consistent with all those policies and the Niagara Regional Official Plan and the Town Official Plan in those respects.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Well, I'm going to reluctantly second it. I do have problems with it. I can see, I'll state there, I have lived in that subdivision 35 years ago or 40 years ago. I understand where these people are coming from, and I have a problem where you go in any subdivision where there's large lots, we're setting a precedent. Buy the house, you're going to get the house back because you're going to sever off another piece of land. The other thing which we aren't looking at, we have to look at the present, but the future, the Ontario government, which is new now, may change all the policies that we're enacting now. So I have some problems. I understand where they're coming from, but it does meet all the criteria. I have no other choice but to second it.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. The motion is passed. If you want to stay there, the next one will be the minor variance. So, we'll go with A11 218P
You can go against this.
for
Sorry.
2227531 Ontario for the minor variance. Would you like to read any of the
Sure.
correspondence? Please.
Application for minor variance. File A11/2018P, numbered company 2227531, Ontario, Inc. Excerpts from planning report. The subject land is located on the east side of Pelham Street, lying south of John Street, known locally as 1295 Pelham Street in the town of Pelham. The minor variance application requests relief from Section 13(2)B, minimum lot frontage, to permit a lot frontage of 15.38 meters, whereas 19 meters is required. The proposed variance is being considered concurrently with the consent to sever application under file B4/2018P. To date, the following comments have been received. Fire Department, no comments. Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. Public Works, no comments. To date, the following comments have been received from the public. Multiple residents submitted a group letter advising they were concerned that the proposed lot is being undersized and there may be adverse impacts on surrounding property values. Is the variance minor in nature? The variance is minor in nature given the surrounding area. Smaller lot sizes are increasingly becoming common throughout the town, region, and province. A 15.38 meter wide lot can still comfortably accommodate a new dwelling while preserving the existing single detached bungalow on the remnant parcel. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The variance is desirable for the subject land because it will recognize the frontage shortfall and give legal status to the development of the plot for residential infill use. The narrow frontage will also help frame the edge of Pelham Street in a more compact fashion by lessening the larger, underutilized side yards between buildings. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The proposed reduction in lot frontage maintains the general intent of the official plan because it will help facilitate the development of a continuous street frontage along Pelham Street by filling in empty, underutilized urban lots within the build-up area. The variance will aid in reasonable intensification of existing urban settlement areas. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The proposed lot frontage reduction is less than what is required by bylaw, but still includes a satisfactory frontage for access purposes and for sitting a new dwelling as the zoning bylaw was intended. Legalizing the narrower frontage permits the development ability of a new parcel which was otherwise a very wide, underutilized side yard amenity area. This added street presence addresses the public realm in a more contiguous and positive fashion. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The subject application is consistent with provincial policies, the regional official plan, and complies with the general intent of the town official plan and zoning bylaw. The following conditions are suggested: that the applicant obtain all necessary building permits prior to construction commencing.
Thank you, Holly. Again, do you have any comments?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you. As we mentioned before that the created lot, it's a very decent sized lot. It's over 50 feet wide, and it will accommodate very nice house in it. And I agree with all comments from the public department about the required service approvals and the grading plan, and which it will be obtained definitely prior to any building permit. and we will make sure that everything is done according to the bylaw and the high standards of engineering requirements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the audience? Come on up again.
Hi there. Yeah, we definitely have concerns about this as well. Bit disappointed that it seems as though this has all been decided prior to today. You know, one issue certainly is the distance from the front of the new dwelling to the street. That is 8.64 meters, which is a much shorter distance than any of the other homes along Pelham Street. I want to make a comment. The gentleman, the architect, mentioned earlier about the owners of the property, you know, building this new home and living in it. I'm not sure that makes sense to me, because I know that the house has been leased out. As of July 1st, there's a new tenant there for a year, and both properties are listed online right now for sale. So if they're looking to do this for themselves, why is it listed for sale?
Okay. We're not aware of it. Nothing has been decided before this meeting, but we do have provincial policy that we have to follow, and we really have no choice but to follow provincial policy. So that's all.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out for the members of the public that even though the slideshow is a summary of all of the planning reports, the members of the committee have received, as part of our public agenda, the comments in full that have been submitted by all of the residents. So they are aware fully of all of the comments and all of the concerns. That was also published on our website, and the committee members are all fully aware of all of the comments. The slideshow that you're seeing is simply a summary of all of the comments in that regard.
And we have read, all of us have read all of the comments, any of the letters that have come in before the meeting, but we have not had a meeting or any discussion between us until this meeting. So, are there any comments from the other committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Believe me, we get this, we had what, about 72 pages just for this particular meeting to do. And we do study it, and we do visit the site. I was a little worried about poison ivy, as a matter of fact, when I was wading through there, and concerned about the valley, what I call a valley at that particular point. So we don't take these considerations lightly. We've been there. I certainly have, and by the same committee, if I may personally say, where I've had applications turned down. Well, being a member of this particular committee, so we take everything very seriously, and we just don't rubber stamp. A lot of people seem to have this idea that we get this information and we just stamp it and it goes on. We represent the community, and the Committee of Adjustment is set up in such a way that we represent you, and we take it very seriously, because our homes are very important to us. And to concur with, I concur with Mr. Chair about the fact that this is something that we realize that infilling is becoming very, very important. And these new policies, we, at the moment, as John has stated also, we must maintain and respect those policies that our town has come up with, the official plans that do exist. But I understand, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
John?
Well, I understand why we had to look at the consent and go on that, but I do not agree that this is a minor variance. I have been in the neighborhood, I've had experience, I've been away for 35 years. That is a huge change going from a 19 meter to 15.38, and I can just see the effect you have to look at from the people that own property, not just our government and saying, the people that live there, they pay their taxes, they bought there because of the nice lot and everything else, and we of the committee sometimes have to protect the interests of the people. There are places where you can infill, and there are places where you can't. It's a subjective. This has nothing to do with law, it's a subjective. It'll do this, it'll do that, it'll look nice. Well, I can say, I don't think it'll look nice. They're saying it doesn't look nice. So, I mean, we can disagree with it. So I am opinion it is not a minor variance.
We've had them, the same thing come before this committee before. If we don't go by provincial policy, all they do is appeal, and the taxpayers pay for all these appeals, and they get it anyway. It goes to Ontario, and Ontario overturns the decision here, and the taxpayer pays. As a taxpayer, I don't want to pay. Anyway, I would be ready for a motion. One way or the other.
Up to you. I won't.
Do you want me to? Well, okay. I'll make the motion that file A11, the Schedule A, A11 2018B, P, I should say, be granted for the following reasons. Because I believe that it is minor in nature given the surrounding area, and particularly a lot of the development that is taking place and that we have approved of, such as across the street with the development of that building. And the lot sizes are becoming smaller throughout the town. And it's becoming very, very common at this point. The second reason is that the general purpose and the intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained, and I have been surprised in the past whether by these what I think are small lots and small frontages, and then these beautiful homes are built. And of course, I truly believe that the development of it will actually increase the value of all the properties. The intent of the official plan is maintained. It's desirable for the development of the land rather than leaving this empty space. I can see that continuous street landscape being filled in. And the application is granted without prejudice of any other application in the town of Pelham. And we have considered all the written and oral comments in detail, read everything, and they all agree with the minor variance report analysis and recommendations that we have received and meet the Planning Act test for the minor variance.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I'll second that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion is granted.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, we'll go on to the next minor variance. A12 218P. Joseph and Rosalinda Zakale, would you like to come up? If there's a representative here or you're here.
Sakoli.
Zakole.
I don't know if he's Italian or not.
Mr. Chair, I'm Joe Zoccoli, 770 Sawmill Road.
Thank you.
I'm the owner.
I'm Tim Sinke, 3566 Camden Road. I'm on here on behalf of Joe.
Okay, thank you very much. Holly, would you read any correspondence? Please.
Application for minor variance. File A12/2018P, Joseph and Rosalinda Ziccoli. Excerpts from Planning Report. The subject land is located on the southeast corner. The subject land is located on the southeast corner of Sawmill Road and Maple Street, known municipally as 770 Sawmill Road, in the town of Pelham. The minor variance application requests relief from section 7.7D, max accessory building height, to allow a maximum accessory building height of 5.12 m, whereas 3.7 meters is allowed. To date, the following comments have been received. Fire Department, no comments. Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. Public Works, no comments. Niagara Region Planning and Development Services, no objections, provided that no plumbing or living space is included within the addition. To date, the following comments have been received from the public. Terry Lynn Jovanovic, concerned with the amount of buildings and the use of the property, was under the impression from the town there would only be one house on the property, with the need for such a large accessory building, that the use of the building will be used to operate a business or store cannabis on site, and that the proposed building will interfere with her view. Paul Snack and Lori Guzda, concerned, design and height does not fit with the rural community, aesthetics of the existing accessory building, and lack of landscaping, need for increased building height because the overhead door is only 10 feet tall, need for such a large building to store personal files, and addition will remove currently productive farmland. They request the addition be located to the south of the existing utility shed and landscaping be included by the north and west walls of the accessory building. Is the variance minor in nature? The variance is minor in nature given the rural context. Medium to large farm-style buildings are not uncommon and generally located long distances from public roads. No negative impacts are anticipated by the adjacent neighbors, as over 150 meters separates the residential neighbors from the subject site. The setback of the building minimizes the impact of the building's height on nearby properties. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The variance is desirable for the property as it allows for enhanced storage and use of the facility. The proposed design of the accessory building can also be more easily adapted to serve an agricultural function in the future if desires change. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The increase in accessory building height will not compromise the objective of the official plan. The variance is appropriate given the site's rural context and meets the general intent of the town official plan policies. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The increased height will not adversely impact the agricultural character of the area or the surrounding countryside. The variance maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw with respect to accessory building massing, sitting, and locational scale. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The application is consistent with provincial policies, the original official plan, and conforms to the general intent of the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. The following conditions are suggested: that the applicant obtain all necessary building permits prior to construction commencing, and that no plumbing or living space be included within the addition.
Thank you, Holly. To the representatives, to the owners, do you have any comments that you'd like to add?
I think it's a pretty straightforward application, and town did a pretty good job responding to the concerns of the neighbors, but I just want to give a quick recap and add some comments to the concerns of the neighbors. Regarding the size of the building, the variance being asked for has nothing to do with the size of the building. It has to do with the height. In fact, if we complied with the height in the zoning bylaw, the owner could build much larger structures. The bylaw allows for a total of 1% of the lot to be used for structures accessory to the dwelling on the property. That would amount to 51,000 square feet. Joe was not, proposing to do anything near that size. Regarding the height of the building, Being in an agricultural zone is not uncommon to see buildings much higher than the height asked for farm purposes. We're simply asking that the height of the existing building can be continued with the addition for several reasons. One being that the addition would blend in with the rest of the building and not give a chopped up feeling or appearance. That the building would be more conducive to agricultural use in the future. In regards to a comment regarding the building not needing to be so high as it only has a 10-foot high garage door. The 10-foot high garage door in the structure, so your total height, you have 10 feet for your garage door, then you have about 2 feet above that you need for the garage door to roll up and to have clearance. And then above that, you have your roof. So the height is taken to the midpoint of the roof, not to the top of the wall. And that's exactly the height that the building is built at, and the proposed addition will match the 10 feet plus, some room above that for the door to open, and then the roof. Also, for future possible agricultural uses, the additional height is useful, as generally things would be stacked with a tractor or other machinery. And in regards to the comment about taking away usable farmland, the addition to this barn will only cover 0.04% of this agricultural property. If we're talking about minor, that's definitely minor. And if the building was a lower height, perhaps the owner would need or be interested in building a larger structure just because he doesn't have that extra height. In regards to comments about landscaping, every property owner can do whatever landscaping they wish. The owner may choose to landscape around this building, he may not. The neighbors to this property may choose to landscape around their buildings, they may not. That's totally up to the owners of each and every property, right? Regarding the use of building for growing marijuana, there would be many more regulations in place in order to build a facility for that. I think we all understand that. As a final note and kind of a summary, the owner is not proposing anything extreme, considering the fact that within the current bylaw and based on the size of his property, he could build a 49,000 square foot building in the front corner of his property as long as he met the 7.5 meter setback from front lot line and side lot line. He's only proposing a 2,000 square foot addition that is over 90 meters away from the lot line on Maple and over 150 meters away from the front lot line on Sawmill. So, in my opinion, I believe this is very minor in nature, about as minor can be. And I would ask that the committee reflect that in their decision.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I can assure you there'll be no plumbing or living space in that building.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody in the audience have anything to say? If you do, I'd like you to come to the mic, state your name and address, and any comments you have for the record.
Thank you. My name is Paul Snack, 785 Sawmill Road. We live directly across from the proposed construction. Just a couple of comments. I know that with building and variances that they're requesting, that it's well within their rules to do such a thing. But a couple of comments. Our neighborhood is zoned rural estate. This is not a farm structure. I don't know if have you gone by. Have you seen what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very commercial design. It's not being used for agricultural use. Then we have to question why so much storage is needed. Comment by the owner at a local get-together was that he was using it to store boxes from a business sale that he had. And I question why anyone would need 2,000 square feet to store boxes for your business. I happen to have a business that I store boxes in from previous business, and I can put them in 3 filing cabinets. So I kind of really have to question what the objective is here. You've seen the picture of what it would look like when it doubles in size. One final comment is that we feel it really doesn't enhance the neighborhood because it does not structurally and architecturally fit. And a final comment, in 2012, when they asked for a variance to build the original garage, There were recommendations made by your group to suggest that landscaping and trees be planted around the building to hide it so that it was blending in with the background. That's never been done. So as we have proposed, if that kind of thing can be done, it would certainly enhance the neighborhood from this perspective that it would hide the building because it is a little bit of an eyesore. And to be double the size is going to be a bigger eyesore. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else has any comments? Any presentations? Anybody? If not, do you have anything to add? Okay, anybody in the committee, any questions, any comments?
I just want, if you didn't have the height restriction, you could just put the building and just apply for a building permit and build it, correct?
Okay.
So the only reason you're here is for the height, right? So anybody making any comment really wouldn't be able to make any comment. You could build it whatever way you want, as long as you maintain the height situation. I just want to make people aware of that situation. Fine.
I think on that side of the road, the zoning is agriculture. So it's very hard to put any kind of a barn up without that extra height. I would not know why the zoning bylaw would limit you to 3.7 in an agricultural area, but I agree. The only reason we're here is the height. And any other comments?
No, I concur with you, Mr. Chair, that we are here because of that particular issue. And I visited the site, and I don't think that it's going to reduce the value of all the properties around there. In fact, I was quite impressed by all the properties, including this one, and the custodial factor and how you've done things up there. So I see no problem. And I also think that if anybody were to buy this particular property and decide to leave farm implements all over the place, which they could possibly do, at least you have this particular building which can accommodate them for future uses. And I think also from a personal standpoint, I think I would be really upset if somebody were going to tell me how I can landscape my property. And from that regard, I trust from what I see that the owner will do all he can possibly do to help the neighborhood be satisfied with this. I think that will happen.
No. Thank you. If you'd like more comments, if you come up, state your name and address.
Chantal Sternberg, 775 Sawmill. I think it's in question because the shed's in the front yard. That's why we're mentioning landscaping and such.
Yeah.
And I think the height's an issue because it's in the front yard. If he had built in the backyard, I think he's allowed the 5.2. The thing is, it's just that it's a shed in the front yard, that's all. And it was,
We went through that
Yeah,
with
that's
the
all.
original application, which I
Yeah.
sat on at the time.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I'm
I think
quite
we're just
familiar with
forgetting
it.
that it was,
In the
that's why we're
correspondence,
mentioning that.
yes, you had mentioned that it would be better south. Yeah.
I live just down the road, so I know the property quite well. Anyway, thank you. I have no comments. I'd be ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept Mr. Zakoli's application for minor variance. That because it is one minor nature, given that you're in the rural area, it's medium to large farm. It's not uncommon, generally located long distance from public roads. And the general purpose intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained, and maintains the intent of the bylaw with respect to accessory building, massing site, and local scale. That the intent of the intent of the official plan is maintained as the variance is appropriate given the site's rural contact and meets the general intent of the town's official plan and policies. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and the use of the land as it allows for enhanced storage. meaning that instead of having stuff sitting out rusting, it's covered and used. The facility and accessory can also be easily adapted to serve other agricultural functions in the future. 5, the application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. 6, the Committee of Adjustment, we've considered all the written and oral comments and agree with the minor variance report analysis recommendation that it meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. And that the decision is based on the following condition, that you get all the building permits and everything that the building department wants, and that, 2, that they want to make sure there's no plumbing and it's not a living space, and you've made that comment here. So move.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Brian. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember to wait your 20 days or 30 days or whatever it is before you start. Okay. I would like to take the last files A13 to 18P through files A18 to 18P. I would like to take them all together. So read just the comments and on those. And
Do you want our approval for that?
pardon?
Do we need a motion for that?
We need a motion to do all of those together.
Consensus would be fine, and if we could have the applicant come forward, that would be helpful.
Yep. If the applicant would like to come forward, state your name and address. And
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Kaiser. I reside at 1541 A Street in Font Hill, and I'm the principal in the number company.
thank you.
Application for minor variance. Files A13/2018P to A18/2018P, numbered company 2475650 Ontario Inc. Excerpts from planning report. The subject land is located on the southeast corner of Bacon Lane and Merrilee Street, being parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on reference plan 59R-13220, and known municipally as 42, 46, 50, 54, 58, and 62 Bacon Lane. The minor variance application relief from section 13.2C, maximum lot coverage, to permit an overall lot coverage of 40%, whereas 30% is permitted. The proposed variances are being considered independently, but are accompanied by identical requests for lot coverage relief. To date, the following comments have been received. Fire Department, no comments. Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. Public Works, no comments. Is the variance minor in nature? The variance is minor in nature considering the surrounding neighborhood context, which consists of both large and small lot, single detached residence. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The variance is desirable for the use of the land because it allows for more design flexibility in sitting a bungalow-style dwelling while still providing acceptable rear yard amenity space. The lots are large enough to have generous outdoor amenity areas and still meet the setback requirements. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The variance maintains the general intent of the official plan because it will promote infill housing and help develop the land more efficiently. Also, in a practical form, the future dwelling can be built either as a bungalow or two-story house with more freedom in allowable building footprint designs. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Although the proposed lot coverage exceeds more than what is permitted by the zoning bylaw, it still leaves adequate room for open space intentions, distance between buildings, and storm water runoff without unduly affecting any neighbors. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act, with exception to the requested rear yard setback. The subject application is consistent with provincial policies, the regional official plan, and complies with the general intent of the town official plan and zoning bylaw. The following conditions are suggested: that the applicant obtain all necessary building permits prior to construction commencing.
Thank you, Holly. Do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess first off, if there are some people here from the community, I've been remiss this time in knocking on doors and explaining exactly what we're doing, so I apologize if there's anyone from the neighborhood here. My partners in terms of purchasing this property are Roman Grochowski and Brad Johnson. Brad owns the Royal LePage dealerships throughout the Niagara region. The property has a bit of a history with it, from what we understand. Houses were built there before and torn down, and it was a mess, and we hope that shortly 6 very nice homes will be built on the subject parcels. The reason for the variance is some of the potential purchasers that we've been speaking to would like to build bigger bungalows than is afforded through the zoning bylaw. When you look at the setbacks and you look at the coverage, they kind of conflict with one another, because essentially if you take the average lot, which is 62 feet by 120 feet, that then gives you a building envelope once you take off the setbacks of about 3,500 square feet. But with 30% coverage, that takes it all the way down to 2,200 or 32 square feet. So if you took off a 2-car garage, you're essentially building an 1,800 square foot bungalow. And these people, in terms of building their new home, or in the case of Hendricks is taking 2 lots, would like to build bungalows that are slightly larger than what would be allowed under the coverage. The change of 40% coverage is not something new in the town of Pelham. The Timber Creek development, which is immediately east, has a zoning across it of 40% coverage in the R1 zone, as does the Lookout Street development in Font Hill, similarly across the entire development. So we believe that the variance will complement and add value to the existing houses that are currently on Bacon Lane by allowing slightly larger houses to be built. I will add also that the town, in terms of the severances, has not imposed architectural controls. We, in terms of our sales agreement with the purchasers, are imposing architectural controls. We will approve the plans. By way of my background, I'm a past president of the Niagara and Ontario Home Builders Association and a board member Ontarian. So we intend to make sure this is a nice-looking 6 individual homes built on the property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Is there anybody in the audience who would care to comment? Any? Yes, come up, name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Eric Jones, and I live at 12 Timber Creek Crescent in Font Hill here. And my question would be, and this is the first time I've seen the presentation, so I'm not aware of the application or what goes behind it. But my immediate concern would be that the 30% coverage rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, it has been in place for some time in Font Hill. And of course, the purchaser of the lots and the builder would know that, and has known that, and would know that that's a prerequisite without coming forward to Committee of Adjustment. So I understand you want the variance. My question would be, why do you need the variance? And in particular, I understand the mathematics of trying to work out the cost of the lot versus the cost of the building and have a profitable structure. My concern, initially when I saw the suggestion that it'd be a bungalow, I thought, okay, I could understand why you would need that coverage. It would be in keeping with the neighborhood. You mentioned Timber Creek. A lot of homes there are bungalows, of course. There are some 2 stories there. But then there was a slide, or a point in the slide that said it could be a 2-story conceivably. Now, 40% coverage with a 2-story home is a mammoth home on a lot. And I have just come from 35 years in Toronto, living in North York, Yonge and Finch area, Willowdale West, where the lots are generally 50 feet wide. Some are 60, they're being severed to 30 feet. Some are being severed to 25 feet. You're taking 50-foot lots. So I'm well familiar with coverage and Committee of Adjustment. So my concern is that you have what I'll call creep here, where you know the parameters going into it. You know that there's 30% coverage. If there's an issue, don't sell 6 lots, make 4 lots. you know, if you need to build a bigger home. So you're weighing off the cost of the lot and the structure. So that's my 2 cents, that I think 40% is not a minor variance. In North York, it's not uncommon to see builders ask for 32%. They look change for side yard setback, then they go from 1.8 meter to 1.5 meter. But 30 to 40% is that's a large coverage, especially if there's a potential for a 2-story home being built there. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The outlawed pennies. Now, so your 2 cents worth.
Yes, so 2 loonies.
Sorry, 5 cents, there's no more pennies.
Yeah, no more pennies.
That's right.
I think we all really agree with you, but our hands are kind of tied by provincial policy. We've lived in this area, all of us, all our lives, and appreciate the large lots and, you know, homes and nice yards and everything. Provincial policy ties our hands now. And like I said earlier, and some of us have mentioned earlier, if we turn this down, it's a taxpayer when he appeals, and the people in Toronto pass it anyway. So I guess for what it's worth, we have a problem, even though we do much agree, I'm sure, with you. Yes.
We don't have to pass this
No.
at 40%.
No,
So I don't think our hands are tied in that particular
well,
way.
you know,
Perhaps you can explain to me how it,
well, we have turned down a lot smaller ones than this, and they go to the OMB and they're passed anyway. So all we're doing, I feel, is wasting taxpayers' money. We can turn it down, he can go to 5, or he can appeal it to the OMB, and from what I've seen in the past, the provincial policy is, you know, intensifying, building up, building closer.
well, of course, anyone can appeal to the OMB.
Yeah,
Judging from the area, what I saw, I'm not saying that I can't see these beautiful homes being built on these particular lots. I just don't feel that our hands are tied at this particular point, unless I'm missing some policy statement, and I forward that question to Nancy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, these lots were created by consent at the lot sizes that are here. So that was taken into consideration at the time, and I don't believe that there were variances for frontage at that time, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Perhaps Mr. Kaiser does know. So the lot sizes are there, which would comply with the provincial policy requirements. Sorry, I don't recall if the lot size had a reduction in frontage. I could go pull the severance files, but I believe that would have been addressed through a minor variance. So the lot sizes are here. The Committee of Adjustment is compelled to make a decision on these applications alone without setting a precedent. And the application is for 40% coverage. The committee does have the authority to reduce that coverage to anywhere between 30 and 40.
Correct.
You can't go over the 40, but the committee does have discretionary authority in that regard. If that answers the member's question.
Yes, it does.
I have a comment. My name's Mike Zork. I live at 13 Rhodes Court. Actually, Rhodes Court is R2 zonage. There's also Rinaldi's new subdivision. That is all 45% lot coverage. On top of the fire hall is all specific site R1 lot coverage. Timber Creek, where you live, is all specific lot coverage per individual home. And they made so many different variances and setbacks within Timber Creek. This is abutting to Timber Creek which I believe the lot coverage is only going to increase the value of all the homes on the street and in Timber Creek and all around. So I would very much like to get the 40% approved, and I have no objections to that. I know it's in your guys' hands, but it's not very uncommon. It's not,
No.
it's very common nowadays. We're talking, these are still decent, much larger lots than all the other homes. But like Mr. Kaiser said, when you really start looking at drawings and plans, you lose so much square footage per garage, per overhangs, per covered porches, which will all still be open green space. However, the lot coverage it's constricting. That's all. So it's just all in all, the lot coverage is just to have leniency in development and just to have better size for planning.
Thank you very much.
Through Mr. Chair, the last speaker hasn't provided a sign-in sheet. If he would like to receive a copy of the decision, I would just ask that he complete one for the records.
Thank you. Okay, any comments from, any other comments? Questions, comments?
Well, I'll make this comment. I think we make our decision. Whether people want to appeal it, that's up to them. It has nothing to do with our decision.
No.
So I don't think we even look at that. Second, that these people take the time to come here. I've had opinions. I think we have an obligation to listen to these people. And the people have a right to decide how they want to view their neighborhoods, how planning. The people are not coming to the meetings when the policies are all implemented. I think for some people, the last hope to enjoy what they have. So I would just bring that to the point is that I want people to know when you come here, I personally hear there and I hear there. And we have to look at it and come up with a solution that's a win-win for all. That's all I'm saying. Nothing more, nothing less.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a few comments, having heard. As I said before in my presentation, the setbacks in the lot coverage do not appear congruent, and I believe that the bylaw itself is flawed and needs to be fixed. And the town is currently rewriting its zoning bylaws. But I think the town saw when new subdivisions came forward, Timber Creek and Lookout, that they changed the R1 zoning to a 40% coverage, not just on a lot here or a lot there, across the entire development, because the zoning bylaw was flawed. So we have, I'm not asking, or we're not asking for setbacks reduced, front yards, side yards, all those stay the same. We're just saying we take a lot that's 62 by 120 feet, and we have a building envelope of 3,500 feet, but all of a sudden when you look at coverage, it's down to 2,200 square feet, which is totally incongruent, and I would bet money that when the town rewrites the zoning bylaw, that will be rectified, and that's why I'm here today.
Thank you very much.
And Mr.
Yes,
Chair, I would concur with Mr. Kaiser on that.
Well, but I'll add one little tidbit. We were at a meeting at the fire hall where we were talking about all these laws and that, and there were a lot of people were upset with what's going on in Fenwick and that. And when I was quoted in The Voice, I made the following comment that your best option to get things changed, don't beat up on the planning department or anyone else or the town with the bylaws. You beat up on the government. If you don't like it, change the government. And guess what's happened? And I think people, if you want to change, you got your best shot now. They've changed it because of problems like you present, Mr. Carver. Things haven't been looked at properly in the past. And that's why problems arise. And a lot of people don't want what was gone in the past. Infill, large lots, everything. But in your case, your lots are, I wouldn't consider small. They're big compared to what they want now. They want in Fenwick, they want to put 30 and 40-foot lots. So you've got a you offer something that a lot of people can't buy.
I'd be ready for a motion if you're ready.
Yes, I'll make a motion that file A13, and all the other files related to.
Through 18, A13 through
Right through to
A18.
A18, yes, be granted. For the following reasons, that the variance is minor in nature, because the surrounding area, which of course we visited many times, consists of both large and small lots and detached residences. And the general purpose and the intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained and still leaves adequate room for open space and tensions that you've mentioned in the distance between buildings and stormwater runoff without unduly affecting any of the neighbors. 3, that the official plan and the intent of that plan is maintained as it will promote the infill housing and help develop the land more efficiently. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and the use of the land because it allows for more flexibility, which I thought was a very good point, in citing a bungalow style versus a 2-story. Number 5, it's definitely granted without prejudice for any other application in the town, and no objections were received from commenting agencies, and I think that's a very important point. And we'd like you to know that the members of this Committee of Adjustment have considered all the written and oral comments that have been presented for analysis and recommendation. Subject to one condition, as suggested, that all necessary building permits must be obtained prior to construction, of course, to the satisfaction of the town of Pelham, the chief building official.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that
I'll
motion?
second it.
All those in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much.
Wait your 20 or 30 days and away you go.
No, not 21, 20.
20, 20 or 30, I don't know,
20 days, Mr.
20 days.
Well, I'm sure he's got
21.
a lot of work just to get plans and everything done.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Okay.
thank you. Okay, any other minutes?
No, sir.
No. I would be ready then to have a motion to adjourn.
No, we want to stay.
No, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Seconder, carried.